Guten Morgen to my fellow listeners. Today is February 12th, 1934. I'm here with my guest speaker, Ethan Morris. So, Ethan, tell our audience about yourself.
Hello, Rick. Thank you for having me. I served as an Unterofficer in the Great War, but now I am just a humble pub owner.
Thank you for introducing yourself. For those who are new, I am Rick Paulson. I was a former banker who retired and am currently running my local Dortmund podcast. We are here to talk about what has happened in our nation in the last decade. Ethan, tell me about your experience with hyperinflation, especially as a pub owner.
Well, Rick, it was hard, very hard. Most days I starved like a damn dog. One glass of beer in my pub cost 4 billion marks.
My God.
Money was so useless that I just used it to keep the fire going. Those dang French guys didn't make it any better, walking into the Ruhr like they owned it.
Exactly. People were just terrified about the lack of unemployment and the government's lack of solutions to this problem. This made many of us fear of a communist uprising. How did this affect your pubs?
Well, Rick, people were like animals. Break-ins were common and people were running left and right, joining up with the communists and the Freikorps.
My God. Thank God Hans Luther was able to stabilize the mark.
Ain't that the truth?
I had to retire early because all the chaos occurring at the banks. I lost my job and became unemployed. Banks were just not offering any more jobs at that time. Anyways, as a former officer, how do you feel about the Treaty of Versailles?
It was a damn shame, Rick. A complete humiliation that had no business being signed.
Yeah.
How could they blame us for starting the war, when deep down we all know it was the Slavs?
Yep.
Muller betrayed us all, giving up our nation's pride when we all know we could have kept fighting.
I remember listening to the radio. The streets were quiet. It was a loss for the entire nation, an absolute humiliation. I mean, with this, I guess it was a good opportunity for a fresh start. A new government, like the Spartacus, Rosa Luxemburg, may you rest in peace, and the Social Democratic people of Germany were all good candidates for the new government. I mean, talk about an underdog where the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or Nazis for short, came into popularity. What do you think about this?
Well, Rick, at first Hitler gave me hope. We needed someone like him to tear up these chains imposed on us by the Treaty of Versailles. He valued our nation's pride and honor, and I must say he was quite relatable and charismatic, especially since he served bravely in the Great War and even managed to win an Iron Cross.
Wow.
But Rick, I will say this. His hatred of Jews and nationalistic ideals are quite disturbing.
Indeed.
His actions during the beer hall push gave me quite a scare.
Yes, I remember reading the newspaper of him and 3,000 other Nazi members storming Munich, attempting to overthrow the government.
Oof.
Didn't he only get a few months of jail time?
Yep. He even used a court case to convey his ideals and win over the public. I think the judge took it easy on him because of his patriotic beliefs.
Yeah. Do you remember the 1932 election?
Of course. How could I forget? A war hero like Hindenburg was just the thing we needed.
I also voted for him, but was quite surprised when he appointed Hitler as the chancellor. At least his main goal was to stop communist ideologies. It was quite a shame about his death, as he was the only person keeping Hitler in check in terms of power. And of course, Hitler took action and combined the chancellor position and the presidency to make a new role called the Führer. Speaking of which, can you go more in depth about how his actions during the beer hall push?
Well, I was shocked that Hitler would try to overthrow the government like that. Of course, we needed change and we needed it quick, especially with the Spartacists and the Freikorps running amok in our country. But trying to take over Bavaria was not the way to do it. I dislike his use of intimidation tactics and political violence to achieve his goals. However, I will say this. I'm grateful that Hitler turned us from a rump state, subservient to the Entente's demands, to a sovereign nation once again.
I agree. Also, don't you remember around a year ago, the Reichstag fire, and how much chaos occurred in only those few months? All forms of government were in shambles, and they were blaming one another, especially Hitler.
It was complete anarchy, Rick. People couldn't figure out who was right and who was wrong. However, I will say it was awfully convenient for Hitler.
What are you suggesting?
I'm just saying that I think it might have been one of Hitler's goons in the SA who started the fire, and not the communist Vanderloob. I'm just saying how it was low-key sus that Hitler used fire to arrest all of the communist opposition in the Reichstag, which led to his political domination.
Whoa. Watch what you're saying.
Sorry.
Remember, this is a live broadcast and anyone could be listening and tell the authorities, especially one of those brats in the Hitler Youth. I'm keeping my son far away from those brainwashing programs. God, I hope Hitler stays normal, humble, peacemaking, responsible leader with no intentions of mass genocide.
Amen.
You know what? Thank you for coming to talk with me, Ethan. And everyone, please go visit Ethan Moore's pub down in Dortmund.
Thank you, Ricky.